this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do the Photoshop steps of photography exercise 1, shot sizes. The first thing we need to do is we actually need to go back to the Media Club website, which will be linked to Google Classroom. If your teacher has forgotten to do that, remind them as soon as possible. We're going to go to the web page that we need now. The first thing we need to do is download the PSD file. If we click on it, it will by default just open, and then we need to click the download button. If we've set up Chrome correctly, it will ask us where we want to save it. Remember, we want to keep everything related to our Photography 1 exercise in our Photography 1 folder. So we can see our address bar here. We can just check this to make sure we're in exactly the right folder we want. And we're going to change this from template sheet, and we're going to give this your name. And then we're going to click save. Now, when we open the your name folder and the Photography 1 folder, you should have your photos and your Photoshop PSD file in here ready to go. We're going to start by opening the your name file. If you get this pop up here, it's just asking you which program you want to use to open PSD files. We're going to use Photoshop always for PSD files. Once Photoshop opens, you'll have a file like this. The way that Photoshop works is you have a number of tools down here on this left-hand side in the toolbar. I like to say that Photoshop is like doing any other piece of art. You have a canvas or a piece of paper in front of you, and you can do various things to that piece of paper. But in order to be able to do them, you have to pick up or put down different tools, whether that's the text tool in order to change text, or the drawing tool, the paintbrush tool in order to be able to paint or draw on it, the photo tool in order to be able to stick photos down to the piece of paper. It's the same as in real life, it's just on a computer. So we need to make sure we're picking the right tool in order to do the task that we're trying to do. We're going to start by changing your name to your name. In order to do that, we need the text tool. It's this little T over here. Once we have the text tool, you can see our cursor changes depending on where we are on our file. Over here, it looks like this with the little dotted box around it. That's because it wants to create a new text box. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure when we click, that box is not around it, because this means it's going to edit the text that we're hovering over. It's going to panic because I've used a different font here. That's okay. We're going to replace, and it will replace it to the default font, which is very ugly. You're going to change this to your name. In order to change the font, you need to highlight the words that you want to change, and then you need to find a new font that you'd like to use. Great, whatever you like. When you're finished, you can click this arrow here, and now we want to put the text tool down because we are finished with the text tool. We're going to go back to using the move tool, which is this one here. If this is annoying you, which it does me, you can click on these three dots here and go hide bar. If you'd like to deselect this item here, you can click anywhere in this empty gray space over here. The next thing we need to do is put our photos into the template. I'm going to introduce you now to the layers panel over on the right hand side. Within Photoshop, and importantly, within many of the Adobe tools and within many media making tools, we're using some combination of layers or tracks. The way these work is they are all stacked together like this. Whichever one is up higher is the one that we'll see first. For example, if I take the insert layer or object and I put it on top of any of the others, you'll see that it's sitting on top. We see it first. If I move it to the bottom of the stack of layers, you'll see it's now underneath those layers, and so we see the other things on top of it. And this way, we can start to move objects around in order to create layering, which can be interesting. I'm going to undo those things that I've just done to put it back where it started. The keyboard shortcut for undo is Control Z. In order to put your photo into any of these objects here, we need to go into them first. These are called smart objects. And so we can tell they're smart objects because they have this little icon here in their layer preview. So we're going to click on medium close-up and we're going to click on its icon. Double click and we're going to get this dialog box here. After editing the contents, choose File, Save to commit changes, blah, 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 blah. Okay. And you can see that this opens up a whole other Photoshop file in a new tab, which is just the parts of the medium close-up. This is really useful because now we can move any of these things around within this file. And if we save our changes, which we can go to File, Save, or we can just use the keyboard shortcut, Control S. In MAD, we like to say stress less, Control S. Once we've saved it, we'll see that our changes have been updated over here. And now if we move this block, the whole block still moves together. So we can make this look really nice. And then we can move it around wherever we want it to be. We want now to look for your medium close-up and put it over top of this medium close-up. The fastest way of doing this is to go Control O to open a new file. And we're going to find the Your Name folder. And I'm going to grab any old photo out of here that I think could be used as a medium close-up. Now, for those of you who are very clever, you will have noticed that this photo here of our lovely 2025 communications directors, Abby Brown and Robert, whose surname I'm currently forgetting, is not in a 16:9 aspect ratio. If your photo already is in a 16:9 aspect ratio, you can just fast forward through this next little step. If it's not in a 16:9 aspect ratio, we need to crop the photo. So we're going to put down our move tool and we're going to pick up our cropping tool, which is this one here. We're going to click on it. The first thing we need to do when we start using the cropping tool, and this is extremely important, is check that the delete cropped pixels box is not selected, making sure that it's empty. The next thing is you want to just make sure that this drop-down menu is set to 16:9. Once you do that, you will see that you end up with these guidelines here, these 16:9 guidelines, and your mouse cursor turns into this black arrow. That's really important because if it still looks like this, what you do next is it will drag out a cropping boundary box and it will try and crop your photo to that, which we do not want. So from the 16:9 box, you get the black arrow. You can move now your photo around within this cropping boundary. And so we'll crop out anything we're unable to see. When you're happy with how it looks, I'm looking at the moment for a mid shot. So I'm looking for sort of somewhere between waist and belly button and just a tiny bit of headroom. Because I have two subjects here, I have to make a choice. So I'm working to Robert's headroom and I'm going to confirm these changes. Now I have a 16:9 image. I'm going to move back to the move tool. And I'm going to go Control A to select all. You can see I now have this, what's called a selection marquee around my image. I'm going to Control C to copy. I'm going to go back to my medium close-up. I don't have a medium close-up in this image, but I'm going to select it anyway, and I'm going to paste it in. And it is too big. So I need to zoom out using the keyboard shortcut Control Alt, and on the mouse scroll wheel, I'm going to pull that back towards me. Now I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut spacebar and I'm going to hold that down. When I do so, I get this hand tool. With the hand tool, I can click and drag. So it's like having a hand and grabbing the piece of paper in front of you and moving it around on the desk. When I'm finished doing that, I can let go of spacebar and I move back to having the normal move tool. When I hover over these boxes here, these little white anchor boxes, I can resize my image. Photoshop will maintain the aspect ratio of your image without you needing to press anything else. So I can click and drag that down to close to the photo I'm trying to replace. Then I'm going to use Control Alt mouse scroll wheel to zoom back in. And I know that this corner is lined up with the edge of the canvas. I'm going to scroll into this corner and I'm going to resize it until I know it's sitting just over top of that photo there. Zoom out, hit the tick to confirm my changes, and I've replaced the photos. I have one last thing to do. Within the Layers panel, I can, of course, restack my layers, so I can take the original photo and put it on top, or leave it where it is. One useful thing to do, and I'm going to ask that you do this, is you can also toggle the visibility of the layer. I'm going to show you what that looks like with this photo I've just put in as an example. If I toggle that visibility off, we can't see that anymore. It's invisible. Toggle it back on, we can see it. I'm going to toggle off the visibility of the image underneath, but not delete it. For some of you, why we do that might become really apparent. In this image, it doesn't really make a difference, but sometimes you'll just see the ghost of the pixels from the image underneath through your own image, and particularly if all of the pixels along the edge here are really, really light, like they're a sky or something, and the pixels underneath are dark, we'll just see a funny shadow, and we don't want to be able to see that. Once you have got the right, so in this case I've done this incorrectly because I've got head and shoulders, but actually this is more of a mid shot than a close-up. Once you have updated your medium close-up, you're going to Control S to save. We know when we've saved a file because it doesn't have an asterisk up here next to the file name. If we look over at shot size, your name, which of course by now will have your name, you'll see there's this little asterisk here. That means there are unsaved changes in this file. If I was to close it now, any changes I've made would not be saved. If we go over and have a look, there we go, there's our photo. Isn't that great? If I Control S, we'll see that asterisk is now gone. Your job is to update each of the images in these smart objects to be the image, the photo that you have taken of somebody else. Have fun!